So, moving on to my adventures with Superman. So, this couldn't have come out at a more convenient time for me after reading so many Superman comics recently. Been talking about it almost every episode about how I love early day Superman. Um, and in this show, Clark is an endearing klutz. In this, it's more earnest, whereas most of the time in comics, it's purposeful so that people don't know he's Superman. Um, and, that's just how he should be. And Lois is a
Right.
hungry reporter. And Jimmy is a lot different from any version I've ever seen, but he's still very fun with his conspiracy theories. And the art style is great, very anime inspired. And yeah, the, the only criticism I would have with the art style is that the line weight tends to be a little bit too thin. Did you notice that after I said it last time we talked about it?
Did. I did.
Sometimes the line
It
weight
does.
it's a little too thin. They need to go a little bit thicker on the line weight, but otherwise it's beautiful. People have been Some people, very small but loud group of people, have been up in arms about the depiction of Superman's powers in this,
Oh
using
yeah.
like blue, electricity and blue energy, comparing him to the Flash. Like, this is Superman, this is Flash. But I think that it's cool and different, but not that different. Because they're likely pulling something directly from the comics that happens at some point. Like, I think in the '90s this happened where he in the comics was split into two in Superman, and one of them was blue, one of them was red, and their powers became more like energy based. And also in the comics, they brought it back recently in the comics where his son essentially has kind of like a Super Saiyan state where he burns all of his solar energy at once and he turns blue. Like, this blue energy starts around him, and I think that might be what that's what they're doing. They're gonna bring in even more anime influence, that Dragon Ball influence, and give him this kind of like when Gohan turns Super Saiyan 2, there's lightning around him, and with the energy, and they might give him that blue Superman transformation that his son has in the comics, and essentially give him a Super Saiyan transformation, which I think would be really cool. And I'm interested to see how they change his powers, because it seems like they're setting up to do something different. So yeah, Superman had a magical girl transformation in the second episode.
Yeah.
The whole twirling and the camera spinning around him and the energy,
Whatnot.
it was cool. Um, I wonder if they're gonna do that more when he transforms, or if because they did show him like just straight up taking a costume at the end of the episode. So I wonder if it's just if he'll like go into like telephone booths or whatever, or if they'll have him do the magical girl transformation every time.
I, Me personally, I hope he does the magical girl transformation every time because I don't watch many magical girl animes, but they do have a soft spot in my heart. I enjoyed that bit so much. So much. Like it makes so much sense, but then it was just like silly enough where it was like I was laughing, but it's like, yeah. Yeah, essentially. Like if you really think about it, Superman is kind of a magical girl.
Yeah. Um. So I want to talk about Deathstroke. So Deathstroke is one of the main villains of this show. If you didn't notice that white haired dude is Slade Wilson, Deathstroke. Um, I don't know if you watched it with captions on, but they say his name is Slade.
I
and
did. I did watch Webcam.
yeah, it probably says it in the credits too. But I found out randomly on Twitter. I think even before I watched the show, and I think that's what was like. Okay, I need to get up and hurry up and watch the show.
Right.
Because why is Deathstroke in a Superman show? That doesn't make any sense. So,
And
um,
yeah, that's what everybody on Twitter is
yeah,
saying,
a
right?
lot of hardcore comic fans like to point out that Deathstroke is a Teen Titans villain, first and foremost. And that's not just a cartoon thing, it's a thing in the cartoons because Deathstroke was quite literally made for the Teen Titans comic.
I
Um,
didn't know that.
yeah, he was, and he has his most interesting dynamics with those characters. And
Right.
while this is true, he has become more than that over the years. Because he's a mercenary, allows for him to fight various different DC heroes. But there's a difference between fighting and having meaningful interactions.
Right.
With that said, my problem with Slade and this is that it could have been Bloodsport, who is very similar to Deathstroke, but the key difference being is that he's a Superman villain, whereas
Right.
Deathstroke isn't. And the reason that didn't happen most likely is because this show was probably in production around the same time as The Suicide Squad was in production, the movie by James Gunn, which is the movie that made Bloodsport a mainstream like character and villain. I'm not gonna
Right.
pretend like I knew who he was before the Suicide Squad, but now that I know who he is, I'm like, well, he's very similar to Deathstroke, and if you're gonna use a character like Deathstroke, why not use the version of that character that is quite literally a Superman villain?
Right.
But I think it's understandable why they didn't, because they probably just didn't know who he was when they were making this.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's the problem with Deathstroke in general. He gets used in place of lesser known characters who are similar to him and are actually villains of that specific hero. And that's because he's popular and casual fans just want to see him fight everyone, especially Batman.
Right.
Despite the fact that he is a Nightwing villain, so if you want to see Deathstroke fight Batman, just have him fight Nightwing. It's
Right.
a very similar thing. But yeah, I'm sure he'll be a fine addition to the show. He's just a weird one. But yeah,
Yeah.
how you feel about the show overall?
So, as a I'm not in the comic sphere very much. I enjoyed it so much. I was one of those people that's like, Superman is boring. I don't understand the appeal. But after watching this, I can definitely see like why people like him so much and why he's so popular. And then also, I love the like little ragtag dynamic they're setting up between him, Lois, and Jimmy. Right,
Yeah,
Jimmy.
Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I love that like ragtag dynamic, because you don't see that in TV shows a lot nowadays. From what I like noticed, like the ragtag tag triplet, and it's one of my favorite tropes. So to see it done well here, I love it. I really liked it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's the thing about Superman. Everybody want to say he's boring, but all the people who say that are people who have literally never consumed any Superman content a day in their life. They're
And this is
just
true. I'll
they're
fully admit that.
they're just talking based on popular criticism of the character. He's a very fun and interesting character, and yeah, as me, a person who values like hope, his the fact that his character is a embodiment of that is a part of why I like him so much.
Real, it's real.
But yeah,